Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Latina Leadership Series. I am your host. My name is Angelica Casares. So, on this episode, we talk finances, we talk about money, and how we're so emotionally invested into money, and how emotions are so tied to our money. Dude, this was a great conversation that I had with Mayra. I would like for you to know that the entire series is actually sponsored by my good friends at Walmart. They give me the opportunity to bring these series to you and these conversations to you for you to listen in on. So tell them hi. Tell them hi. Tell them Angelica sent you. Also, Mayra, we talk about finances. So I was also like I was on a live stream with LULAC, and Walmart actually sponsored that live stream, and they were also talking about finances. I thought that conversation was amazing because I had just talked to Mayra like earlier that day or the day before, something like that, and I was like, what? And we and it's the same conversation. Like, one of the things that I did take from both of the conversations from that live and from the conversation that I had with Mayra is that we're so tied into our emotions and our finances. And I was like, fuck, dude, like, how do we separate both? Should we separate both? Like, what's up? Anyway, it's a great conversation that they had on the, like, I believe the LULAC still has it on their live on their Facebook. If you haven't checked it out, go check it out. And or before you leave, please listen to this interview. Please listen to the conversation that I had with Mayra. Okay? All right. Hope you enjoyed this interview. Welcome to another episode of Latina Leadership Series. On this episode, I get to introduce and I get to interview a very good friend now that I met at She Podcast. Well, let me start off with this. First of all, for those who are following the Latina Leadership Series, I apologize to begin with. I know I kind of fell off, but I have explanations for that and I'll give them later. But today, let's talk a little bit about money. I want to dive into a little bit of money and how it affects everybody in our life. So on today's episode, Mayra, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you so much. I'm Mayra Alejandra Garcia, and I am the host of Debt-Free Latina, also a podcast.
Yes.
And
Yes, ma'am.
I love talking about how you can get out of debt and build wealth.
Yeah. So, when did you start? When did you start your podcast?
I started about a year ago. I also fell off and started again. So I've
Yeah.
been on and off for about a year.
Yeah, it happens to the best of us. I say the best of us because, when you really want to put a lot of effort into it, you overthink it a lot. You overthink, like, and you're like, I want to give the best possible product that I can give to whoever is listening because I don't know, like, I want it to represent me. And so we start and stop because of that. And then, of course, the whole, like, what is that called when you, like, second guess yourself, like, in the platform, like the
imposter syndrome.
imposter syndrome. Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
I had that, and I also had some health issues at the beginning of the year, which
Okay.
just it's rough. As a woman, I had a miscarriage earlier this year.
Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry to hear that.
I also tore my ACL in March, so I've had a lot going on.
Oh, yes, you have. Yes, you have.
It's been a rough early 2021 for me.
Okay.
So I'm back at it.
Woo!
And I'm excited to be back on the mic.
It does. It feels good to be back here myself also. Mayra, we when I was telling a friend that usually and my husband too, I was like, when I go to some conferences, and I love going to conferences for this reason, because I get to know a lot of people, and I don't know why, but when you're kind of in the same business and you're doing the same thing as the other people, like, around you, you connect on different levels. And then we connected on a whole different level. And this includes Teresa, who's not here yet, but she's also going to be interviewed, because I was like, we sat down at a Japanese restaurant and we just, like, poured our little souls out. And I was like, this feels like home. This feels like home. I want to ask you one, I want to ask about your past, and why did you start podcasting about debt free? Did it have anything to do with your past? Did it have anything to do with, like, your upbringing then and now? And how did you get here? How did you get to podcasting about debt?
That's a really good question.
It's a loaded one. I'm sorry.
Ask me one or that. I feel that I was in a lot of debt.
Okay.
And nobody ever taught me about money growing up. Money was a taboo topic growing up, like it is in a lot of Latino households.
Oh, yes, it is.
And when we had a house we couldn't afford, and we had 2 car payments, credit cards for every store you can name, and student loans, we were like, what do we do? Why is like our money not enough?
Mm-hmm.
And so that started, the process of trying to figure out, how do we do this? How do we get out of this? How do we move forward? How do we build wealth? Because that's what we
Mm-hmm.
wanted, to leave our children with something when we leave this earth. And so that's what started the whole thing. And I started learning about how to budget and how to change the narrative in our culture. And slowly over the years, because this started in 2010. So my debt free journey started in 2010. I got out of debt in 2012, and then not until 2017 did I start like looking for ways to get certified, to become a financial coach, to do this for a living.
So you're
So,
committed.
yes. So it took
Okay.
me a while to kind of start it on my own. But in 2020 was when I was like, okay, I need to start a podcast because I have a website, I'm coaching people. I need to be able to share some of the tips and tricks in like 10-minute episodes. So most of my episodes are only 10 minutes long, and they're
Mm-hmm.
really practical strategies that you can apply right away.
Okay. Okay. So you were in debt and you're trying to get out of debt and you're trying to figure it out. Did you kind of learn on your own? Was there things that just people were not mentioning, people were not talking about?
Well, I think that my
Or were they
parents
giving you
just
the
had to
roundabout way? You know what I mean?
No, I just think that my parents were not very good at managing money. I mean,
Okay.
to this day, I feel that I do a lot of the hand holding, and I did
Mm,
a lot of the coaching sort of when I was a teenager with my parents. It was really interesting. I have an episode where I talk about my childhood and how the power got turned off, not because we didn't have money, but because my mom forgot to pay the bill. And my mom was so disorganized.
yeah.
And so there were little things like that that I went through where I was like, this can never happen to me. I know
Hmm.
that this will never happen to me. And
Hmm.
so that's what kind of sparked, like, if I really have a moment in time where I'm like, what made you not be like your parents? I
Hmm.
remember being 14 and having that situation happen and saying, this will never happen to me. But yet I found myself in a ton of debt 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So it was never that bad, but it was to the point where we would stress out. So what I did was, at my local church, um we had a class that they were giving and they were offering it. So I took it. It was a Dave Ramsey financial piece. So that was like my first introduction to anything personal finance.
Okay.
And I dove into it. Like, I was all in. I was like, I'm going to do this to the T. And my husband was in, thankfully
Hmm.
was willing to do it. At the beginning, he was kind of hesitant, but then when he saw me that I was all gung ho about it, he's like, okay, fine, let's try it.
Hmm.
And so that's how I started in 2010 learning about personal finance and how to create a budget. And I've since created my own little strategies of how
Hmm.
to create a budget and so on, based on just us Latinos have a different way of prioritizing things. One of the things that I saw growing up, and that I still see in a lot of Latino households, is that we really support our elders.
Hmm.
And I saw that growing up, where my dad would support my grandmother in Mexico every month. He would send her money. And so those are little things, right, that we just value and are different to us Latinos. And so I really try to um, show that that's a part of our culture, and if we want to embrace it, I'm here to help support that. And multi-generational homes are a thing in our culture.
Yeah.
And so there's nothing wrong with that. I think that there's not anybody out there speaking about that, in like Dave Ramsey doesn't talk about that, right? Because he's speaking to the white community.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of things that I can relate to as a Latina that we do a little differently, and that's okay.
We do. We do provide a lot of our parents with a lot of emotional support. Like my mom is very financially stable. Um she opted out to make sure we had like a roof over our head. So she never had like the lights turned off, and she was very diligent about that. She was very diligent about saving every fucking penny. And then there's like the extreme side, right? So it's like my mom's extreme side where it was difficult sometimes. It's not like we were poor, but it was to the extreme where she was I so frugal, and I was like, and it kind of, there was that scarcity, right? That the money was going to run out, the money's going to run out, the money's going to run out. And I always, so I myself, like, even though I see my mom, like, she was, worked 30 years, she came from an abusive relationship, with my dad. And so she was like, I'm never going to depend on a man. Like, it's going to be me. Like, it has to be me. And she did it, she did it, but she did it also like on the backs of, like, you know on the sake of, like, our her mental health, and like all sorts of things. And so I we end up providing things that they don't have, like emotional support, right? She doesn't need my financial support, she needs my emotional support. We conversate a lot about money, but it's always about the scarcity of it. It's always there's not enough money. And like, mom, you're fine. And it's not she thinks she's going to run out of money, but she worries about us. And we're like, well, we're at a place in our life where we're kind of using, um, where we're trying to see how we can navigate using sort of credit, right? It's been forever since, like, I got a car when I was like young. When I first had my son, I was like 21 or 22 or something like this. And I got a car on my own, no cosigner, no nothing. Like, I had built like my credit enough to be able to do this. And then of course I fell into, and then we had this conversation when we were sitting there at that Japanese restaurant. I fell into depression, anxiety. I couldn't get up out of the sofa to like go anywhere, do anything. My legs were noodles when I would walk out of the house. Like, I was a mess. And so my credit kind of, I don't know, took a hit, when you go through emotional shit that you go through, like, everything takes a hit, your family, your credit. I mean, society's like, you're ruined. We're not going to give you anything. Anyway, so I've been working on this credit. I've been working on my credit for, huh, about 2 years. And it's not that it was like really bad, but I wasn't making enough money for anybody to give me any kind of like credit card or any kind of like, I don't, financial institutions to like lenders, like loan lenders for cars.
Yes.
They were like, no. And so I've been working on my credit, and finally, like, I was able to like secure like an actual loan that I can now go look for a car on my own. No cosigner by my husband, none of that. Anyway, trying to explain this to my mother was difficult. I was like, Mom, I need a car. Nobody's going to give me a car. And I don't have 15, 20K in the pocket to be like, here you go, car, place. Like, here's my money. And I got a kid in college. You have a kid in college. You know what that looks like. And I was like, I can't, but we can't be running around in one car, me and my husband. I was like, I'm back on the road. Like, yeah, it's probably only to the grocery store down the street, but like, I'm back on the road. I need a car. And trying to explain this to my mom. Oh my God. Oh my God. It's difficult. So I get you. I get you when you say, like, yeah, financial literacy is not like, it's prevalent, but it's so skewed in our community. It's everywhere, everywhere.
And I think a lot of it has to do with what you've been through shapes you, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So for your mom, the scarcity mindset, maybe she has been without, maybe she
yeah,
has seen
yeah.
times without, and that has shaped her into, how she thinks and how she projects her worries and all of that. So we, as I feel like I'm first generation, right? So like first generation have a different mindset, have had different opportunities than they have. And so we do have somewhat of a responsibility to teach our parents, you know what? The scarcity mindset, it limits you.
Mhm,
And so I think having the abundance mindset and really working towards it, right? Because I mean, you can have an abundance mindset and not do anything towards it. You can just sit still and expect things to happen. And that's not how it works
yeah,
either. You also have to put in some hard work and you have to plan and you have to execute. And so that's where, it all comes hand in hand. And so it's really important to teach abundance mindset, financial literacy combined
mhm,
because it really, really needs each other.
mhm. Um, so do you find yourself teaching your kids differently? Like we're talking about, right? Our kids are in college. We have boys in college.
Yes,
You're
we
teaching your
do.
son, you're teaching your daughter differently. Do you feel like they get it?
I feel like they do, and what's really nice is that I've done a little bit of research into their personality traits, and so I know that
Talk
my
about that. We
son.
did. Where's my
Yes,
damn pen? Let me write this down again. What is it
I'll
called?
remind you. There's a couple of tests that we've done. So one is like the Myers-Briggs.
Hmm.
Another one we've done and we really love is the 5 love languages.
Uh-huh.
So how it's best to communicate to them, how do you show your love
Mm.
towards them? What do they prefer? Because sometimes we think it's one thing and it's another.
Yeah.
So there are things that I feel that my son is really good and practical where
Uh-huh.
he's he's a saver, he's a natural saver. He works part-time and goes to school and he doesn't spend very much. And it's really
Mhm.
nice because sometimes I feel like, mijo, you could spend like a certain percentage of your and just go out to eat and go with your friends and go have coffee and do all the things. And actually, in the last week, we've set a budget amount for him for that because I felt like he was just saving everything, which is great, but I
Uh-huh.
think he needs to go out. He just got his license too, so there are little things where I'm like, "Okay, you have to pay for your gas, so put that in your budget." Whereas my daughter,
Uh-huh.
we just opened a bank account for her, and
Okay.
it's a joint account, so it's just her and I, and she's very into certain things, right? So she's into the clothes, and she's a girl, and,
Mhm.
it's a little different,
Mhm.
where I feel like with her, I have to be a lot more intentional in showing her we save, we spend, and we give.
Oh.
So we don't just spend it all. We
Mhm.
have to save a certain amount, we have to spend a certain amount, and we have to give a certain amount.
Okay.
And that makes you a well-rounded person. And so that's been where I'm working with her. And I give her, so I have a percentage of money that goes into clothing, for example, for our
Mhm.
family.
Mhm.
So from that percentage, I take, her portion and I put it into her bank account. And she has to manage that money however she wants. So I'm teaching her at 16 how to manage the money that is allocated for her.
Okay. Huh.
So it's little things, right? Because she doesn't have an income yet. She babysits here and there, but she doesn't have a stable income. But I want her to learn to manage money, learn to keep positive in a bank account and not overdraft and things like that, that are just really simple skills that we
Mhm.
can teach now.
I need to adopt that. So because my son definitely doesn't spend what he feels like he doesn't have. Like he's working at school and he has like an allowance that's given to him, but he's the kind of kid who likes everybody to participate. And so if somebody is low on funds, he's more than willing to pay, which is good. Which is I love that about him. But uh, I'm like, well, better budgeting might help this, right? So instead of getting himself in the situation where he's like, oh, I got $50 and I can spend this much, right? And somebody's there also who's like, well, I can't participate. Instead of him being like, oh, it's on me, which is fine. I'd rather him like before stepping into the situation, like being out and about, being like, okay, my mind, I have to, being vocal, like, hey, I only got this amount of money, guys, so if we do other things, like I won't be able to go. Um,
I think setting certain limits like that and boundaries in whatever it is that you do in advance
mhm,
always gives you the upper hand.
yeah,
So setting, looking at your calendar and saying, "Hey, what do we've got going on the next week?
mhm,
And how much money do I have allocated for each of these activities?"
yeah,
And
yeah.
really
That's
going into it knowing that you only have this set amount for that activity or else you're gonna have to give up the next activity.
that's right. That's right. I love that. Sounds so beautiful to save, spend, to give. Because a lot, we also have to consider, right? If you're making money, consider those who are not, and they're not fortunate to be able to like save the way you are, right? Because they have to.
Yeah, and that
there's
could
other
be
things.
and I really like to say that the giving part has to be something that comes from your heart. It
Mm-hmm.
can't be like a certain amount or a regulation or a law. I mean, a lot of us that are believers believe in tithing to the church 10%. Some
Mm-hmm.
don't. I know
Mm-hmm.
that that was a conversation that my husband and I had early on that we disagreed. And it was really interesting, right? Because it's like, okay, well, we seem to have a disagreement here. What percentage, if it's not 10%, would you feel okay with? And so these are
Mm-hmm.
just conversations, right? That it doesn't have to be 10%. It could be, I don't know, two, three, four, five,
Yeah.
whatever it is. You know, if it's not your church or your local church, it could be a charity. It could
Yeah.
be to someone in need in your community. It could be so many things.
Mhm.
But having that allocated in your budget just makes you so much more aware of the need in your community.
Yeah. I feel like money is so tied into like emotion. We spend emotionally. Um,
Yes, we do.
yeah, I at my age, I'm learning now how much emotion, like how much emotion I'm tied into things. Like I'm when it comes to food, I don't care. Like I don't care. I spend the money where like I'm like no, like I went to Costco. I went to call it the trap. I went to Costco and I told my husband like I'm a Costco. He's like
Your $200 store is what we call it.
oh my
You
god,
can't
it
eat
was
without
unfortunate.
$200 or more. Like, that's just how
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah, yeah. And so but it's food that I'm buying. And I'm like, Juan, like, it's like, I can't set a limit to food. I cannot, not because I used to have a really unhealthy relationship with food, let's be honest. But now when it comes to like just having food here or being mindful of when it comes to spending on food. I am now about like eating out. Now I'm like, okay, Juan's like, Angelica, we have to, we can't, our bill can't be 80, $100. We're saving because we're going to road trip. We're going to, we got to have a couple of, money saved away. Like if you want to, have a good time on the road trip and not being like budgeting out there, you need a budget now so we can save for later.
Mhm.
But so I'm mindful now. I'm like, okay, our spending. So it's two of us, $15 each. So we should have a bill about maybe 30 to 35, and that's including the tip. So when we go to the restaurant or we go somewhere where we don't have to like, diner style, where we don't really have to tip except the people who are cleaning the tables, or to go. Right, that's the easiest way to like save some money. It's like to go because we're busy, and so taking an hour and a half out of our day to cook. Um, Sometimes we can go hours, and by the time we're eating, it's like 4 or 5 o'clock, and I'm like, fuck. I'm like,
You
and
know,
so that drains us.
I can completely relate because our grocery bill and budget is one of the highest in our household.
Oh my
And one of
goodness.
the things that has really helped for us just in the last couple months, no joke,
Hmm.
I had my husband sit with me for like 20 minutes and I just said, "Name a bunch of dishes that I make
Hmm.
that you would wanna eat in the next 30 days." So I just on a spreadsheet, I just wrote everything he would say,
Hmm.
and then I just went through the list, and we had I think it was over 20 dishes that he mentioned.
Hmm.
So then I went through and I said, "Pick 5, that's gonna be the next week." And then from there, I went shopping. So
Uh-huh.
I'm just trying new things because I was like, our bill is like for a family of 4, we spend minimum between 150 and $200 a week. Like, and
On
that's
groceries, yeah.
yeah, like that's to me, that's pretty high compared to what it was, but then again, my kids are grown now.
Yep.
They're not, like, eating like pajaritos, they're actually eating
Hmm.
grown food. So there are
Yeah.
little things that have changed, right? So I can't
Hmm.
compare my budget from 10 years ago to what it is now,
Hmm.
but I do try to, like, minimize and, like, how can I make this better? Because we are spending over $1,000 on food. Like
Yeah.
like, is this normal? I start asking myself and looking at, like, my books and stuff to see if I'm like within the ranges. Like, I mean, I still adjust and try to figure this out, but there's so much we can do with planning. And I think
Mhm.
we don't give ourselves the time to plan, to sit,
Mhm.
relax, maybe get a cafecito and
Mhm.
just sit outside and get a notebook and just plan.
Mhm.
And it's amazing what like 20 minutes of planning can really do for you. Like from food to your time management to your budget. It doesn't matter
Mhm.
what you choose to like plan, but either of those 3 things will change your life.
Mhm. I got a lot of implementing to do here. I'm taking like mental notes, so I gotta for sure sit there. I mean, because we plan out like our work. We plan like me and my husband plan our work. We plan like what we're gonna be doing for the next month and how work is gonna look like, how many episodes we gotta record, what do we gotta do, and the spot, a sponsor, a spot, a this, a that, like, and a client here, and outside of the business and his business and then our business together, the podcast, my podcast, and we planned really well for that. Like we're planners. Then when it comes to like everyday life, we're like, like it just, and so
Well, what's
th-
really
yeah,
interesting though is that when you have that skill, it's
mhm,
really easy to transfer it to other areas of your life.
okay.
So
Oh, okay. So,
don't feel like it's, like we already do this. Well,
mhm,
then maybe in your next meeting, just say, hey, let's not get up just yet. Give me another 10, 15 minutes. Let's talk about this now. And that's it. Just add it to whatever it is that the planning you already do. You don't have to set more time away.
okay. Dang. You see, I want to plan with you because you're telling me all the great, like you're telling me, you're like, give me some of your time, like give me like 10 minutes of your time. We're already talking about this. Let's do this. But probably like that sounds like workable. But then I remember me and my husband, and we like have full on fights when we're like talking about work, and we're like this and this, and then
Oh,
what's
yeah.
priority
I
and
mean,
what's not. And he's
budget
like, oh, budget. I
budget
mean,
committee meetings, which is what I call them,
uh-huh.
um, get heated.
Yeah.
Let's just say they get heated, but I'd rather have a heated conversation now
Mhm.
than have a full-blown, like, fight and you're gonna have to, like, sleep on the couch type fight because you overspent.
Yeah.
And you know what I
Yes,
mean?
because it doesn't
Let's
make
be in
any
the doghouse now.
sense. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. It shouldn't. This money should be a topic of conversation. Yes, I love my husband, but we should be on both on the same air like wave of like, oh, okay, you need a car. We should allocate some money for like car payments, type of situation.
Yeah, even
And
repairs. There's a lot of things that I feel that we should have sinking funds for. That's what I call it. Like a
mhm,
mini savings account for all these little things that just life happens, right?
yeah.
And we can't plan everything either.
Mhm.
We just
Yeah.
can't because
Yeah.
life happens.
Mhm.
So like for us, my husband walked in yesterday from work and he's like, "Guess what?" I'm like, "¿Qué pasó?" He's like, "My AC just went out in the car." I'm like,
Oh,
"Well,
those are expensive.
that's a problem because we live in Arizona and it's
Yeah.
really hot, but we do have the fall and the winter because you're gonna have to roll down your windows this fall and winter until we can save up for that right now. Like, it's not an urgency, I don't feel
Mhm.
like it is." He's like he looks at me like, "Really?" And I'm like, I if you think it's different, like, let me know, but I'm gonna just put it in the budget and start saving for it. But
Uh-huh.
if it was an urgency, like, let's say this is the middle of July, it just would not be possible for him to go to
Absolutely.
work 30
Mhm.
miles in the heat. Like, it's just not possible. So we would have to figure something out, whether we pull it from savings or whatever it is, right? I
Mhm.
mean, we try not to put anything in credit cards or debt or anything like that because we try to stay debt free. But I do know that when we've had so many things really deplete our savings in this last couple months that I feel like, I
Mm.
don't I really try to find other alternatives. And that's
Mhm.
and that's just how we look at things, but everybody's different and I respect everybody's like how you manage a chaotic situation because necessities like AC are a necessity in Arizona. They're
Yeah,
not needs. I mean, they're
that
not
hurt.
wants, needs.
Yeah, that hurt. Listen to AC Brent. Oh no, me, I throw out the car. Get like, that is in Arizona. Forget it. Oh my God, it's not
I
even
know.
like heat. It's like you're on the sun.
He's
So
lucky it was
yeah,
like 50 degrees this morning. So I was like, I think you could drive to work with the windows down. I'm bad. Anyway, I digress.
we gotta do what we gotta do. Sometimes we have to like save up for it. Sometimes my husband will be like, Angelica, we can do that in 3 months. And I'm like, fuck. Okay, I can wait 3 months. I can wait 3 months. It won't be coming like I've been like without my car, right, for a long time. He knew I was going to start doing this. Like I was looking at this. And last month, because I want to give a down payment, right? And so last month we went to She Podcast and that took up some money. And we wanted to travel to Utah and that took up some money. So I had to, I was like, Angelica, do you need the car right now to be parked at the house while you're traveling? Or or you can wait till next month and you can give a down payment and it'll be okay. And I was like, okay, that's right. You know what? And then I heard that there was like because I talk to people and I ask all the questions that I can ask to people who have been buying cars, and how does the used car scene out there look? Because I'm not trying to buy a new car. And they're like, you know what? A lot of the cars are running out because there's these chips that have been going in that the cars are selling overpriced. And I was like, huh, I'll give it another month. I'll give it another month and let's see how the used car sells like out there, the pricing. I don't want to get oversold on a car that it's already used, so it's already depleted in value, and it's not a necessity. Like me and my husband we can fight about it, but we can keep sharing a car, so we'll be fine. And so I had to wait. I had to wait on it, and I'm perfectly fine with waiting for my vehicle.
That's
I'm
awesome.
perfectly
Let me
fine.
tell you, I'm super proud of you for saying that because one of the signs that I always go to as somebody that is growing in their money journey
Uh-huh.
is learning to delay pleasure is actually a sign of maturity. And it really and growing in this money life, right? In this um journey, it's
Mhm,
about growing and learning and applying, right? And
mhm,
so as you make these decisions to delay and
mhm,
to wait for the right time for you, it's great and there's nothing wrong with that. And even if you were to decide to, you know what, instead of a month, I'm going to wait 2 weeks, that's okay too. Um,
mhm,
do what's good for you and do what's best for you, but just know that sometimes delaying pleasure and delaying these things to be in a better financial situation
mhm.
is super wise.
Yeah. Well, I knew that not getting a car when I wanted to get it was going to keep us at about 1,500 for the next 2 months at least. And I was like, we can actually use that money 1,000 because we also I have a kid in school and we pay for his school. And so there was a big chunk of money that was going to go to his tuition. Otherwise, he wasn't going to be able to sign up for next semester's classes. And I was like, okay, either a car or the kids' tuition. I was like, mm, the kids' tuition probably makes sense right now. And it's not like I like, oh my God, I think I'm so good. But I don't want him to worry. You know what I mean? Because I wanted something. Yeah.
I
Because
I applaud you because I just think like it's so it's so not often that I find somebody that has a kid in college. I had my son very young, so I have one in college. But to have a different mindset of we don't want our kids in debt and we're trying our best to cash flow as much as we can because we don't
yeah.
have a college. I personally don't have a college fund for him, but I'm still going to try my best to keep him out of debt because I know what that did to us
Yeah.
when we got the student loans.
Hmm.
And so I'm not going to say that he's never going to get student loans because the kid is thinking about a master's degree and all the things. And I'm
Oh.
just like, dude, I might not be able to help you there, but I can help you as much as I can.
Mm-hmm.
And so there might be student loans in his future. And that's to me, it's like, okay, well, that's his decision. I can't stop him from pursuing a higher ed degree, but I am going to try. And I just applaud you because for you trying to do the exact same
Mm-hmm.
is, it's really, it's a different mindset. It's a really different point of view. And thank you so much for considering that for your son because it's going to be life changing for him.
I It was because we also, and we actually started doing a lot of this. Might this is where it came from, is that we had to pay for his tuition in high school. So he came from a it was a Catholic school that he started, and this all stemmed from he was starting junior high, which is middle school here. And what happened was that he started getting into, like, he not issues, but he was having a hard time with himself. He was like, I seem not to be getting along with the students here. I seem to be just like, he was antsy, angry, frustrated, and the teachers weren't helping. Like, it was just too much. And so I found a Catholic school here, and this was when we weren't. I mean, we've always been, not now. I mean, we're not like rich, but we're not like the way it used to be like 10 years ago or more or less than that. So anyway, so I was like, okay, he needs to go somewhere where he really can find himself. So I went to this to the church down the street, and they have a Catholic school, and it's tiny. I think each class has like 17 students for each grade or something like that. Like, it's tiny, tiny. And I enrolled him there. And oh my God, he flourished. And so he just became himself. He just started being who he naturally became to be. And I was like, and it was because it was a small school. And it was because he was with his peers and the teachers were listening. And now I wasn't paying a lot because a lot of we got financial aid for him there. And I think I was paying like maybe $200-300 a month for him to be in the school, which was phenomenal. And all of a sudden he became a great writer and he started doing amazing things. Got on the basketball team. I mean, he just like he expanded to the big boy he is now. And I was like, oh my God. And so when it was time to go to high school, uh, he had several choices, and there was one of the choices that he really wanted to go, and it was going to cost us a pretty penny because this was a more sought after like high school, like in the realm of like private Catholic schools. And so he got in. You have to apply to these schools, and then you get in. He applied and he got in, and we're like, okay, so we have to pay this. Here we go. Um, and that's kind of the way that happened. And that education, that high school education that he got there, he was writing at a level that I could not master in my college. Like, taking college literature, taking English literature. Like, nope, I'm not writing at his level even now. And so it made sense that money was well spent. And I was like, I looked to my husband. I was like, Juan, you ready for another 4 years? Because we got to pay this again. There's this education that he's receiving. It's not where we got it. We didn't move into a nicer place like the area where they have like the better schools.
Mhm.
Like, we didn't do that. We happened to stay close to I live in the same neighborhood that I grew up in.
Okay.
And so it's not you know what I'm saying? There's not much
Oh, yeah. I
for
mean,
education. Kind of sucks here, let's be honest. So I was like, well, we could like go get like a house, like a payment, because we have owner to owner. I'm gonna be honest, and our payment is pretty low because it's owner to owner. Quite low actually. And so we don't have a lot of debt to this house, and we're actually going to be paying it off pretty soon, like within the next 5 years. And at such a low rate, at such a low payment of a house. And I was like, we can either like seek like a bigger house, or we can pay his education.
mhm.
And I was like, I'd rather do this than that. And so I don't know. In honesty, I think it was the investment in him that I was trying to do. And you know how it is. It's when you invest in your kids and you see them do things that you're like, damn. You're
Yes.
like, I'm Anyway, so I guess what I'm trying to say is that's where that came from. It's the importance of investing in your kid, not because, I it's not like, oh yeah, he went to this like amazing school, he's doing this, but he himself is himself without the worry of like, oh no, we suck and my school sucks and I don't know grammar and things. And I mean, I don't know. So it's the investment in the kid, and you know that, Myra. It
Yes.
has to be. It has to be, because there's this thing that kind of happens within you that you're like, damn, that's a good kid.
Yes.
Yeah.
And and I think that's good that you were able to also, like, I think I relate in that you took him to a smaller school that
Yeah.
you knew would be best for him.
Hmm.
I did something very similar with my oldest because I did see that he had some sort somewhat like social issues, like where was having trouble making friends and things like that at a very
Yeah.
young age. And we luckily had a charter school. And it's not like super close where he could walk to school. Actually, the high school and middle school that are in our neighborhood is something he could walk to, but we
Hmm.
had to figure out a way to transport him to that school that's a
Hmm.
charter and that had like the really small classrooms and things that you mentioned.
Hmm.
So we had to figure, even though we weren't paying because it's a free charter, we had to figure out how are we gonna get them there? How are we gonna get him there? How are we gonna get him back? Because he can't walk and there's no public transportation there, you know, to and from. So it was still somewhat of a challenge and had to do some,
Yeah.
investing in babysitting and, someone that could carpool him.
Yeah. That's a lot of investment. That's a lot of that's time. That's time that you have to take out from somewhere else that you can be making money to be investing in your kid. And the reason that he ended up at that chart school, I'm sorry, at that Catholic school was because it's down the street for me. Like
Right.
literally, like as a person, and I told you about my story that was very depressed and very agoraphobic and very like much like very like clinically depressed, and I had anxiety and I had been going to therapy. And anyway, to say this is that I didn't have the privilege of being able to pick him up like down the road, but he was right here. He was less than a quarter of a mile away that I could drive and get him and pick him up. And that was like, and that's the only reason he ended up there. And I was like, I told my husband Juan, I was like, Juan, we can afford $200-300. I think we can do that. I was like, investing in the kid, and then I can pick him up. Hell yeah, we can do this. We can do this. And so that taught us a lot. And he just it, there was some luck part played into it too, is
Yeah,
that he flourished, and it was a good investment. And I was like, we should probably keep investing in him and in his education, because are you looking at the kid's writing? Are you hearing him right? Are you hearing his creative writing? Are you listening to this? And he's like, yeah. I was
that's
like, well, let's keep going. And so, oh my goodness, I don't want to take up too much of your time.
good.
Or just I can, because I can, we can talk about our kids all the day.
Yes, we can. We're proud mamas.
All right, all right, all right, Maida, I have a few questions before I let you go.
Yeah.
Um, well, here, let's start here. First of all, where can we find you, Maida? Where can I find you? If I'm listening to you and I hear that you're emotional, tied into debt, and you want to get out of debt, and I'm probably down your stream, and I'm you 5 years ago. Where can I find you?
If you want to work with me, I'm at debtfreelatina.com. You can go in there and book a call with me. I will walk you through step by step on how to create a budget that works for you because everybody has a unique situation. So if you're interested in that, that's my website. I'm also on Instagram at debtfree.latina. And
We'll
I'm
add it here. We'll add it here.
Yeah, and then
Yeah,
the podcast is Debt Free Latina, and I am in all major podcast platforms.
awesome. All right. I wanted to get that before, just in case I forgot to bring it up at some point. Okay. So here's a few questions I'm just going to throw at you, and you can answer them at will if you like. If not, you can be like, Angelica, pass. So, Maida, have you ever been wrong? And you don't have to mention when you were wrong, but can you tell me the lesson learned?
Yes, I'm wrong a lot. Um, The lesson learned is that hmm, I made a financial choice recently, actually, and
Okay.
I'm gonna be super transparent. I made a financial choice without including my husband,
Oh.
and we usually talk about all these things in advance, and I just chose to execute without, and I knew it was gonna cause some conflict, and, I did it anyway, and I think that was wrong, that shouldn't have been, and when I did have to talk about it, and it did create somewhat of, conflict,
Yeah.
and it was I was wrong, I shouldn't have done that. I'm wrong a lot, actually.
I don't think so. I don't think you're wrong as often as you think you are. Okay. So the lesson learned was, yeah.
Lesson learned, don't hide anything from your husband, just be as transparent as possible, even if you know the answer's gonna be no.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah, I've learned that I have to come with my bullet points because my husband has 20 questions. He was a past journalist, and so he's ready. He's ready to ask me all the questions, and I'm like ready too. And he's like, "Well, what about this? Well, what about that?" I'm like, "Well, this and this and this and this and this and this." And he's like, "Oh, well, what about this?" And I'm like, "Fuck. All right, hold on. I gotta go plan real quick. I'll be right back." I wasn't prepared for that question. Hold on, Juan, because he's really good at it. I'm like, "Damn it, I wasn't ready for that
Yes.
one." Okay. Does your life compare to how you imagined it when you were growing up?
No.
Okay.
Um, I imagined I would be in LA because I was born and raised in East LA. I would be in like a really nice area of LA, that I would have like a really nice house by the beach. Um, I didn't see myself as a teen mom. I was a teen mom, so that was different and
Mhm.
a blessing in disguise. Um, I wouldn't have it any other way now, but
Mhm.
I know when I think about what I thought as a kid of what my life would look like, it's very different, but
Mhm.
I also look at my blessings that have come with all the different turns my life has taken.
Okay. That's an amazing answer. It's difficult to sometimes think that life, because I for me, I think life could have been worse. And I was like, "Fuck."
Really?
Yeah. Oh my God, Mayra, we gotta
Oh,
I think I got lucky at some points in my life. Um, and that's due to the prevalence of like like my sister being in my life when I was young. Like I
right.
just had she my sister who passed away, had she not been in my life when I was little, oh my God. Oh my God. Like I was like, fuck. I would really be so yeah. So I do. Sometimes I think to myself, fuck, no matter how bad sometimes my life gets, I'm like, this could be worse and shit like that. So um and so sometimes I get that imposter syndrome where I'm like, I don't deserve any of this. And I'm like,
Oh.
this should not be mine. You know what I mean? But I'm like that.
I see it and I get it, and I think
Uh-huh.
that also comes with a lot of just what we've dealt with in our life, right?
Yeah.
But I also think that, you know, I am a person of faith, and I feel like God has always been, helping navigate this whole process and had a hand in, and that's how I would see it. Like if you're telling me this right now, I
Hmm.
see it as God was protecting you, God was there for you, and that's how I perceive it, right? Everybody has
Yeah.
a different perception of things, but God was taking care of you is how I see it.
Somebody was. Somebody was. I don't know if it's past ancestors or if it's like we have a
All
whole
the
theory.
things,
We
all
have
the
a whole thing. Me and my son have this whole theory on a lot of things. And he's like, "Mom, I don't my head hurts thinking like that." And I'm like, "Mine too. We won't say anything anymore." All right. So one last question. What's
okay.
something you like to try but you haven't had the nerve to do it?
YouTube.
How shit? Like a vlog or like video? style? Like,
Like, I
what are you
would
thinking?
love to record my podcast on video like you are
Okay.
right now and put it on YouTube, and also have some sort of series. Like, I don't know.
Mhm.
I would love to do YouTube. I just don't have the capacity to do
I
YouTube right
love
now.
talking to you. You're an amazing talker. You would do phenomenal in video. Phenomenal. I love your voice. So I wanted to like touch on the conversation that you had last time where we were talking about, I think you were talking about, we had the conversation there at Chi Podcast where you were talking about like your experience when you were inside the bazaar area
Oh,
at
yeah.
that last day. I wanted to touch on it, but I was like, no, I was like, well, because you made the podcast and I was like, oh my God. I was like, there's so much to dive into this. There's so much to dive into this. And then we were talking about something else. I was like, no, we got to do another episode for this one, for that, just that specific, what happened. Because
Okay.
I have my thoughts. Like, I have notes. Okay. I got notes on
I'm gonna
that.
breathe because that just gives me so much stress
Oh,
just
I'm so
thinking about
sorry. I didn't mean to
No, no,
stress you out.
you're good. No, you're good. I'm just like, "Mira, just breathe," because I did my actually, I have not podcasted since I did the podcast on this issue, and
Mhm.
one of the things is that it affected me. It affected me a lot. I think
Listening to
that
it myself affected me. I was like, and I'm not her.
I know. You heard the podcast?
I did.
Oh, okay.
I did. And I was like, and it was overwhelming for me just to listen to it, Mayra. And I was like, holy shit, dude, what's up?
It was a
So
lot.
yeah.
And I think that I'm grateful that I've had people come around me and, like, coach me and provided feedback and have, like, loved on me and all the things, right? So, I'm coming out of it, like, but
Mhm.
I was totally in a funk for, like, a whole week.
Yeah.
It was, like, a whole week, and I know I texted you and I was like, "How
Yeah.
are you?" Because I knew you were out having fun in Utah, and I was totally, like, living through you. But,
Oh,
it was it was like, wow, I need a vacation from just that vacation in the conference I was just in, and it was I just thought I would put a podcast together with what my thoughts were at the moment, because I think that if I was to try to convey that message now, it would
mhm,
not have come out the way it did. I was literally in the middle of all of my emotions when I created that podcast, which is I called it Lean on Hope,
mhm.
because that's all I can do at this point. I feel that there's a lot of, some of them are limiting beliefs that I just discovered,
Okay.
through some of the things that I've talked to with Celia, who we also met at the event, and she had a call with me and was amazing, amazing. The
Oh my
girl,
goodness.
you
Uh-huh.
need to talk to her, like,
Okay.
she's oh
I
my
am
god.
g I'm trying to she's busy, and I was like, I'm trying to catch her in a moment where she looks like she's down.
I know, she goes a million miles an hour,
Yeah.
but I am totally gonna, like, I'm not even considering, I am going to hire her to
Mhm.
coach me, because I feel that just a conversation that I had with her, which was, like, short and straight to the point, it was, like, maybe 30 minutes long, it was so powerful. She, like, made me see so many of my limiting beliefs, and I didn't even know they were limiting beliefs, and sometimes it just takes another person to point them out.
Yeah.
Um, and it was just I've learned that I'm gonna have to create a list of all the things I can do and just attack one at a time and stay true to me. Try and stay out of debt as much as I can, as long as I can, forever if possible. But that's just me too, right? That's just how I'm wired now.
Mhm.
I think that if I'm trying to preach debt freedom and trying to preach we should build wealth, I need to do the same. I need to live by example.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Yeah.
well, if you want to have a conversation about that podcast episode, I'd love to pull the transcript and see if we can attack it.
Hells yeah. Oh, we should. We need to because I had thoughts on that and I was like, and I thought we could like cover it, and I was like, no, 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 that needs a whole like episode on its own.
Cuando quieras.
Yeah, yeah, that needs a whole episode on its own. Okay, so Maida, before I let you go, because I'm holding on to you at this
You're
point.
good.
I'm like,
You're good.
don't go.
It's
Okay,
okay.
one last question. Do
Yes.
you consider yourself a leader?
Yes.
Why?
Because I have been able to mentor and really help a few people around me. Not necessarily like on purpose. It's been more of when I see a need, I try to fill it. And I'm a natural leader in that way. I feel like that's what a leader is. When you see a need, you fill it. If I have the capacity, the will, the wisdom for X, Y, or Z, I will do it.
Mhm.
Um, and that's what a leader is to me. I don't know what a leader is to anybody else, but I feel like the skills that I do have, I'm more than happy to teach anybody that wants to learn.
That's an amazing answer. That's an amazing answer. The willingness to help makes you a leader. Yes, it does. Absolutely. I think that was an amazing answer, Maida. So is there anything that I didn't cover that you would like to emphasize here with me?
Know if your listeners would love to create a budget and need a template where to start, go to debtfreelatina.com/budget. You can download a free template right there. I am, at your service. If you need anything, please just reach out. I'm just an email away.
Awesome. Awesome. Maida, thank you so much for taking the time and the opportunity to talk to me today. You can do
Thank
me
you
just
for
one last
having
favor.
me.
Can you
Mande.
wave at my listeners? Thank you. Bye. So what did you think? What did you think about that episode? I mean, doesn't she has a lot of really great points. She has a lot of really great like insights as to like how we're so emotionally tied to like our finances, how we're so driven by like our want and need for like want to show people our love, and then sometimes that's tied into like our finances too, and it's sometimes it's difficult to separate the two. I don't know, like I got a lot of learning when it comes to the topic of finance, making money, keeping money, how to spend money, and how to work credit. I'm all over the place. Like in my 40s, I'm barely learning this stuff. So hopefully, take a note from us and learn early about finances. Don't be like your two tias here, Myra. And no, I'm just kidding. I think Myra has a really great like put in to like learning her finances. I'm still learning, and she's way younger than me. So I got a lot to learn. We think money is just money. It's just green paper, but yet we tie so much of our emotions into it. I really hope you enjoy this episode. Thank you, and I'll see you next time. Bye.